Welcome to Distance Dialogue. On behalf of WVU Online, I'm Dr. Lee Silverman. Joining me representing our student ambassadors is Dr. Angie Milliron. Presenting today's topic, Entrepreneurship, Defying the Status Quo, is Rob Simmons. Rob is a dedicated full-time video producer for the National Wildlife Federation and the proud owner of Shore Films, a video production company located on the eastern shore of Maryland. A 2019 graduate of WVU, Rob earned his bachelor's degree in strategic communications with a focus on advertising alongside a minor in linguistics. He's passionate about nonprofit storytelling and filmmaking and has produced several award-winning short documentaries and films. Currently, Rob embraces the lifestyle of a digital nomad, calling Barcelona, Spain his temporary home. However, he plans to return to the U.S. soon, aiming to catch the tail end of ski season in Colorado. Today's presentation will focus on entrepreneurship, defying the status quo. Thanks for being with us today, Rob. I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Thank you so much, Lee. I appreciate the introduction. So my name is Rob Simmons. I used to be a pirate. As you can see, I'm no longer a pirate. Unfortunately, I think this would be much more interesting if I was still a pirate. But I work for the National Wildlife Federation. And as Lee mentioned, I work for Ranger Rig magazine. National Wildlife Federation is the biggest conservation nonprofit in the U.S. And so Ranger Rig is a kids publication educating kids about wildlife, teaching them how to be stewards of the environment. And what I do is I'm a video producer, so I create short videos about animals that exist via QR code in the magazine and also on YouTube. So just showing you a bit of what I do. This is kind of the intro to our YouTube channel. This is sort of the content I create.
Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is a place to explore everything about animals. I'm Ranger Rick. You may recognize me from my magazine. It's published by the National Wildlife Federation, and it's been around for over 50 years. We make magazines for kids of all ages, and about all animals, even dinosaurs. But now, we're joining YouTube. Subscribe and join kids all over that love animals, like to laugh, and care for our planet. I'll see you soon.
Awesome. So that's essentially what I do. I animate the raccoon. I'm also the voice of the raccoon. Please don't tell the kids of America. And I just basically find licensed clips from various videographers. If it's a cougar clip, I'll license a videographer in Patagonia. We have a big network of videographers and wildlife photographers throughout the world. And I just kind of try and edit it together in a way that's playful, fun for kids, and engaging in a way that keeps them interested in the environment. And so this is a talk on entrepreneurship, but ironically, most of my time is working as an employee for a nonprofit. But I have done a lot of various entrepreneurial things. I run a wedding business called Shore Films, as Lee mentioned, and also just kind of the act of making videos, making films is entrepreneurial in and of itself. So kind of I'm going to use this presentation to sort of run through some of my story, and hopefully there are some insights in there about being entrepreneurial, and more so really living a life that kind of defies the status quo, that's more in alignment with who you are. So my entrepreneurship journey starts in Peru. So I was, after 2 years in community college, I wasn't sure what to do with my life. I was trying to figure out what was next. So I did some Googling and found a teaching program in Lima. And Lima is an interesting place because it's the income disparity is very apparent. So I was working on the outskirts of Lima in a place called Pachacutec. So it's sort of the slums. There's a ton of people, and a lot of people who came there for job opportunities in Lima, and also as a result of some of the terrorism in the 80s in Peru. But in downtown Lima, one of the big attractions is like this water park and like this light show reflecting on the water. And then you drive 30 minutes, and a lot of people don't have access to running water. So it was a time when I had a lot of questions about my place in the world and sort of how people can live a certain way in one part of the world, and I'm at home in America and have a very different life, like two worlds happening simultaneously, but being very disconnected and disjointed. So at the end of my teaching program, one of my students came to me and said they needed a place to meet and gather to discuss the distribution of the water. The water was being trucked in at the time, so they needed to kind of meet on a weekly basis to discuss who's paying for what and sort of to self-organize in that way. So they wanted to build a community center. And so I crowdfunded money. So I started my first entrepreneurial endeavor of like having an idea and being passionate about it and getting people together and crowdfunding money through photos and videos, connecting with friends and family back in the US. And then I returned to Lima after that 5 month. I worked a few jobs. I wanted to raise money to kind of go back and do some programs in the community center that we built. But then we also had the opportunity to build a medical laboratory. And so this is a film, a short video we made kind of thanking donors, just to give you an idea of sort of what that experience was like for me.
From March to April 2015, Sean and I lived in Pica Piedra, Peru, a community of about 700 families 2 hours outside of Lima. We set up a project with a small medical post, with the objective of building a medical lab and a center for health education. Waterborne illnesses, anemia, and other ailments resulting from poor sanitation and infrastructure are large issues in the small community, so our goal was to provide the space and the equipment needed for basic testing and diagnosis, and a space to educate residents about good health practices. In late April, after coordinating permits with the Ministry of Health and spreading word of our project to the community, we met Arnold Schwarzenegger at his guinea pig farm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. No sé qué es.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
¿Ah?
Soon, over 25 volunteers got together to level the land for construction. By June, a local cement manufacturer donated all the cement needed for the project. By December 2015, we'd received over $5,500 in donations through our fundraising page, networking at events, presentations, selling macaroni art, a little armed robbery, and just the willingness of everyone to share the story and help out. In January of this year, Sean returned and coordinated the construction, using your donations, and in July we both returned for a couple of weeks to check on its progress.
So that's just a section of a bigger video, which a lot of these videos are. But the reason I was trying to show that was really about the value of content. So value is a pretty fundamental thing if you're in the entrepreneurial space. It's sort of thinking about what value you're bringing to the world, or even in a general career, what value are you bringing to your job? What value are you bringing to clients? And for me, understanding value of content was I was abroad, I was experiencing all these things, and the real value of content was a window into someone else's life, into a different culture, into a different way of life. And also, the value of telling that story in a way that emotionally resonates with people, the people at home, and results in action. And so when thinking about value, I think the other side of that is thinking about the value of your work to you, like how does it align with your interests? And I think entrepreneurship in general is trying to align those interests with value for the world. And right there, you got kind of the cocktail for what is something you can follow to kind of find success in entrepreneurship, whatever that means to you. So going into West Virginia University, I studied strategic communications, as Lee mentioned. And I went into college pretty intentionally trying to follow, learning how to do videos, learning how to make films better, to kind of communicate with people about other people's stories in the nonprofit sector. So these are some screenshots from some films that I made on campus, just constantly kind of trying to create things and scratch that itch. And I met a lot of people through that. West Virginia University didn't have a film program at the time. I'm not sure if they do, but it's not necessarily known as a film school. But there was still an opportunity to find a community and find people who were interested in like-minded things. There were opportunities like Campus Movie Fest, which came to the university and gave students access to cameras to kind of create films. And I still work with a lot of friends from college now. So that on the left, that's a short film we shot in October. It was a surreal horror film that we shot in the woods in Savage River State Park near Frostburg. So it's still the value for me of college was really connecting with people who were like-minded, and I also found other like-minded people in the Food Justice Lab, which is a great program out of the geography department at WVU that focuses on giving food access to people throughout Appalachia. So I'll show you another quick video just talking about where I was at the time in 2019 and how I found value in that program. One of the more memorable moments at the lab was Bradley Wilson kind of just texting me and saying like, hey, there's this farm bill that's about to pass in Congress, and we need a couple of videos to encourage people to call their senators to protect SNAP.
For my family, it's been a necessity a lot of times.
I think that process of actually seeing not only analytics from a video, right? So you see that people are watching it, but then also knowing that the fact that people are watching it, they're also taking action and they're calling their senator, and then they're protecting SNAP, and then they're protecting kids who get food through SNAP, sort of thing. So it's like, I think the most memorable moments are when a video connect with an audience and then that connection results in action. And I think that's ultimately the objective of the lab is action, right? It's not just like we're researching for the sake of creating a map about food access in West Virginia. The lab is also like saying, we have this map, we know this about West Virginia, how can we solve these issues? And then go to communities and actually present that map and say like, what can we do about this? So I think that's the whole idea of action. I think action-oriented video making or video production for me is like a cool concept. Yeah, so community is pretty foundational in kind of defying the status quo, right? I mean, there may be sort of certain standards culturally that are the status quo of what you're expected to do, but within that, there are plenty of sub-cultures, sub-communities, people who will align with what your interests are. So West Virginia University for me was that, but also now it's really about finding people who are in a similar space of filmmaking or of documentary and connecting with them, collaborating with them, learning from them, looking for mentors in different ways. So after graduating in 2019, I actually skipped walking for graduation for WVU, to Africa. So there was through my fundraising efforts in Peru, I got connected with a well driller from my hometown, and we were both presenting at a Rotary Club. And I got to talking to him, and he goes to Africa 4 times a year to drill wells and uses his profits from his well drilling business in the US to donate his time and create a charity in Tanzania and Ghana. And so it was super interesting to me as someone who was kind of just starting in the sector of trying to get into nonprofit storytelling. So I said, just if you're going, please let me know so I can just organize, and I'll just go and I'll shoot content for you just to have some experience, some hands-on experience. So I'll show you a super short snippet of this film we created that I all shot and I edited after the fact from Africa.
The undeveloped world right now is in crisis when it comes to water, which is very unfortunate being in the 21st century, but it is. And there are just millions and millions of people without the ability to have a clean drink of water. And almost every one of these people are standing on ground that 100 feet below them is the answer to their problem. It just takes someone, and it takes some money, to drill down and get that clean water. It's there. We just need to go get it.
Awesome. So that, as I mentioned, is part of a bigger 20-minute film that I made for Lifetime Wells International. And sort of I wanted to talk a bit about opportunity and risk. So as I mentioned, there was just this opportunity to create this film or just to capture content of the work that they were doing in Ghana and Tanzania. It wasn't necessarily paid. It was just sort of an opportunity, and it was just really in alignment with what I wanted to do. So I took a risk. And as a result, that film that you saw, the full 20-minute film, ended up being a paid opportunity after I had captured all the content in Tanzania and Ghana. I was able to edit something together for them, and now their main fundraising tool is using that film to kind of tell the full story of the founding of Lifetime Wells International. And it's a pretty amazing story. If you check them out, they do awesome work. So generally, I would recommend that in taking those opportunities and just kind of doing them, don't necessarily worry about how the job is going to come out of it. Just really follow the impulse of creating something meaningful to you or doing something meaningful to you, and taking that risk. Of course, that requires stability, and financial stability. Risk is easy for a lot of people to say, but it's dependent on some stability and having some safety net. For me, stability was coming in the form of weddings. So during college, I was filming weddings for a couple of years. And after college, my main source of income was wedding videography. So I'll show you briefly some of those weddings just to give you a feel.
See you at the end of the aisle. I can't wait.
You've given me more memories than I can count, and I am so excited to make more with you as my husband.
You look so beautiful. I miss you. Oh, Mama. So much. I can see why you made me wait. Yeah, it looks amazing. You look beautiful.
Yep. So I filmed over 60 weddings through my wedding business, short films, and only crashed the drone once. So the main idea from weddings for me was learning the craft. It was really, I was there a lot of weekends, weekend after weekend. I was filming, I was learning camera settings. I was constantly trying to improve the image that I was getting. I was reinvesting the video, the profit I got from the business back into cameras, back into gear, back into learning how to best create wedding films that emotionally resonated with people. And I started to see, the fruits of those labor after 5 years. I was starting to outsource the editing. I was kind of at a point where I could scale the business to, focus for the wedding industry. It's about 8 hours of filming for the day, maybe 10 hours of long days. But then after that, it's just the editing at home. So I was able to kind of start to outsource that editing. but I was pretty burnt out, and I wasn't enjoying the weddings. The wedding industry is it's pretty intense. It's an intense clientele. So I was at a point where, according to the status quo, I was able to expand my business. I was had a successful business, but I was not enjoying it, which leads to this film. So this is a film I made to try and kind of capture the burnout feeling. At the time, this was like still during COVID. I was living in DC, in a new city. I was working for a production company in DC that was much more corporate work, just trying to kind of expand and get into more corporate films. And I was burnt out. So I'll show you a brief snippet of this film that was intended to try and kind of capture that feeling.
Is my existence meant for work? Does my production equal work? Will my persistence make me smile? Is this creation worth its while? Where the money at? Is the shrinking in my phone? I leave my chargers in the wall. I use a lot of plastic. Let me think and reconcile. Is this creation worth its while? When I say you say run. When I say pizzas, you say done. Pizzas. Am I smiling way too much? A bit alarmed by human touch. What are my thoughts on Palestine? Am I drinking too much wine? He's in a funk, he cannot shake. Time slips, is he awake? He's in a funk, no time to sleep. Funky is his state of being.
Whoa. I'm in my subconscious now, I think. Whew, spinning. There's a lot of amazing memories in here. There's joy and a lot of good bowls of cereal and just all the things that have shaped me. But there's a lot of fear in here too. I'm terrified of being stuck in a never-ending list of meaningless tasks. In pursuit of what? Validation? Financial freedom? I have this recurring dream that I find my creative and playful self, and I'm just suffocating it.
Awesome. Yeah, so it was a little heavier, but it was a film I made to kind of express a feeling, which I think is ultimately what Phil is intended to do. But at that time, it sort of led to this question. I mean, this question has bounced around my mind, and I think many entrepreneurs' mind, and is sort of what is success to you? I think there's the standard metrics of success culturally in American culture. There's exposure, there's your profit, there's the higher end clients and things. But I think you have to kind of interrogate what is enough for you, and what ultimately do you want out of a business, out of your career, out of your life. So this was kind of a consistent question that rattled around my mind at the time. And what I realized is that it's not the running a business that I really enjoy. It's the creating things. It's creating videos that I find creatively fulfilling and that I think resonate with people, or are making the world a better place in some way. So I think that's a personal question for everyone. I think it's a question to everyone. Is every entrepreneur has to say, what are the goals out of this? They don't necessarily have to be building a business and scaling it and making a big wedding empire like I had the opportunity to do. But it can be much more simple, and it comes to listening to yourself in that process, which leads me to where I am now. So now I'm in Barcelona. I'm living in this co-living, co-working space, and I work remotely for Lifetime Wolves. I work remotely for National Wildlife Federation, and I just create videos about animals for kids. It's super wholesome. I often think about the next generation of kids and watching these videos and becoming stewards of the environment as a result of the Ranger Rick brand and the legacy that the brand is that I'm a part of. And it's all about this kid. It's all about the pirate. It's all about thinking through what world do you want for your child itself? Like, how can you have them inherit a better world of the next generation? And also what made that kid feel alive? How can you reconnect with the excitement that you had as a kid in your work? And I think that's ultimately what's most important to me in my success is feeling alive in my work and connecting with that sense of playfulness, and really communicating that to kids, and ultimately, hopefully, doing something positive with my work. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, thanks very much for your presentation, Rob. That was very informative, very enjoyable, very entertaining, touching, brought smiles, brought warmth. I think you just covered so much in what you've done in your time in this career and in following your passions. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I believe we do have some student questions for you, and I'll begin with the first one, if that's okay. That is, do you ever suffer from imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with fear and doubt?
Yes, great question. I certainly had it even giving this presentation. I think I'm not necessarily a traditional entrepreneur, and I'm sort of in the nonprofit space now. But yeah, I think I've struggled with it a lot in my 20s, and I think a lot of people do. I think it's a completely normal thing. I think dealing with fear and doubt are sort of an inevitable part of being a person. So it's sort of developing a relationship with those feelings. But also I think interrogating maybe why you feel that way. Why do you feel like you don't belong in this space? What about sort of your beliefs about yourself tell you that you shouldn't be where you are? And zooming out and realizing that everyone is just a human and is just as insecure and mortal as everyone else. I think that sort of helps to take that broader lens and realize that you're sort of in control of the truth about yourself. So.
Oh, that's a great answer. So thank you for that also, Rob. Angie, I understand there's some additional student questions. Would you like to share those?
Absolutely. Hi, Rob. It was a great presentation. I loved it. I love to see the work that you're doing to leave your mark on the globe with some of your outreach things and all the wedding stuff. I do a little media, so I know how exhausting that can be as well. So, but one of the questions from our students is to get here where you're at now. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I think you have to acknowledge the privilege I was kind of given. You know, I even if I'm just thinking about kind of the growing up in a house, it was very playful. It was very creative. My father is a bluegrass musician and a software engineer. My mother works for Parks and Recreation, and was constantly sort of where I get my passion around service, and I grew up with a lot of creativity around me. So there's certainly an emotional stability, but also a financial stability that allowed me to take some risks. Even though I was able to be pretty independent, there's still always this safety net in the back of my mind that I think a lot of people don't have or take for granted. So that was certainly a factor. And then, you know, I think it came down to following the curiosity, as I was saying, like following, being willing to follow what I thought was interesting, what I thought was cool, and working at it. And I think that work's, of course, a factor, but it's the cocktail. It's hard to say.
I think it's great that you have a family that is sort of open to the creative lifestyle that gave you this opportunity to follow that vein. And speaking of, do you have a routine that you follow to stay motivated after seeing your in a funk video? So what is your routine to stay motivated?
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the moment, I am traveling around a good amount. So I'm sort of living a life at the moment with not a ton of routine. My routine changes pretty consistently month to month, or depending on where I am. But I would say often what keeps me motivated is just kind of focusing on the kids, right? It's like thinking about the kids that are seeing my work and are getting inspired by it or getting excited about on the life. So I don't necessarily have a routine. I think I still work the 8 hours. I just, if I want to go play paddle, which is like a Spanish like form of tennis, I go do it. And I kind of am prioritizing my rest and my kind of life enjoyment just as much as the work, which I think is an important thing for me at the moment.
And what business changes over the past 5 years might have surprised or impacted you the most now that you're able to live a less regimented life? Has that changed over the 5 years, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think, so now my business, I still have the LLC in the US, and I still do creative projects as I want to do them. And I think that's the thing that's been different is as I've changed where my finances are, what's sustaining me is now my full-time work, and I'm able to focus my business on projects that are just exciting to me. I'm not taking on work from clients that are just to pay the bills. So I think that's been the biggest change is sort of stepping back, reorienting like what I want to be doing, what kind of projects I want to work on, and focusing on those.
And another student asked, what is your favorite part of being entrepreneurial, and what's the hardest part of it?
Yeah, I think just taking an idea and bringing it to fruition, I think is the best part about being entrepreneurial. And I'm saying that from a filmmaking perspective, I think everything starts with an idea, whether it's a business. I mean, a business is a very creative act, and starting with an idea and then just doing the work to make it real. That process is super fulfilling. I think the hardest part about being entrepreneurial, especially if you're a small business or a business is sustaining your lifestyle, is just the stress of just constantly looking for more work. You wear so many hats. You're constantly managing your time. I think the pressure of having it all on you it can be quite difficult and emotionally taxing. So I think that's the hardest part is managing that and learning to deal with that.
We talked about how you've changed over the past 5 years, but where do you see yourself 5 years from now in the future?
Yeah, that's a gonna be question. I would say just continuing to, I'm not sure exactly where or what, but I would say continuing to do work that makes me feel creatively fulfilled and I guess alive and that I think is having an impact. And also I think making a documentary, I'm putting that out there is something it's been a goal. So I think trying to bring that to fruition, I've said that for a long time, so I have to do that.
That is awesome. I'm a little jealous that you don't have time to do that.
Well, yeah, it's making the time.
And then what should a person do if they enjoy their career but want something more autonomous or passion driven?
Yeah, I think maybe the first thing is understanding that entrepreneurship is less autonomous than you think. Oftentimes, I think, especially for a small business, if you're, it depends on what you're in it for. But you're often catering to the client. You're often wearing a lot of hats. You're often kind of it can feel like you're stuck doing so much for so little output. But I would say it's also about if you do have a passion for it and you do want to build a business, that's awesome. I would say just follow it, just start doing it, start taking small steps to get there.
Giant leaps of faith for some.
Sure.
And one final question from the students is, what's your best advice for networking or finding the right people to help you plan and strategize your next move?
Yeah, I think just doing it. Like I was saying with the community thing, I think it's just finding, maybe leading with the passion. If it's for me, it's often like I hate networking events, but I think if I'm able to orient myself a bit more in like something that's interesting, there's a conversation topic there. You could dress as a pirate too. I think maybe that would be a brand. You'd be memorable. I think it's just about kind of doing it. It's one of those things. Even if you feel like an imposter, it's just kind of trying to orient yourself in what output you want out of it, and just trying to kind of put that out there.
Well, thank you. That's all the questions I have, and I will turn this back over to Lee.
Well, thanks, Angie. I'd like to thank our guest, Rob Simmons, for being with us today. Also, a special thanks to Dr. Angie Milliron and Joanne Hunt and Eric Merrill, who have been helping behind the scenes. For Distance Dialogue, I am Dr. Lee Silverman. Thank you for joining us.